Here it is, fellas. The game we've been waiting to talk about, the San Francisco 49ers and the Philadelphia Eagles. This is 3 fairly universally across the board. There is an expensive 2.5 still on the 49ers, total sitting 47.5 to 48. We hear the news that Dallas Goedert is back at practice and wants to play. Now still has to be medically cleared, so that's a thing. So wanting to play is all fine and dandy, but so, fellas, I'll kick this off. Steve and I put in I put in a ticket. Adam put in a ticket second that this thing came out, and I took the one and a half. Actually, so I do a show on Sundays. The lines are coming out. It was at 1. I'm like, I'm going to bet this, and then by the end of the segment, it had already gone to 1.5. So I didn't get the 1. I got the 1.5. Then it's 2, 2.5, 3 start hitting. Then there's a little toggle back and forth between 3 and 2.5, but. You guys know how high I am in the Eagles. I love the Eagles. But if you look, brutal stretch of games for this team. And then the other deal about this, guys, is like long break for the 49ers. And then you get the overtime game for the Eagles. And Adam, the defense for the Eagles was on the field for 92 plays against that Bills team. And we know that was a slog of a game, like everything. It wasn't 92 easy plays. It was 92 tough plays. And now you get the best team in the NFL coming in. You got Fletcher Cox, who's banged up. You got Davis, who's banged up. That doesn't bode well when you looked at like the one thing that you looked at about this team is like, well, at least you know you can't run against them. So like you can kind of scratch that off. That's not the case if Cox and Davis can't play. I just think a lot is in favor of the 49ers in this one. Adam, what say you?
So let's dig in a little bit on this. You're looking at a game that's sitting 3 and 47.5 is the total I'm seeing in most spots. Your handicap to me comes down to whether or not you think Philadelphia can move the ball. Because I don't think there's any question about a healthy San Francisco moving the ball against anyone in football, right? You can book San Francisco for 24 to 27 points, I think, pretty easily against most teams in the NFL. And you saw Buffalo last week be able to move the ball with relative ease against this Philadelphia defense. And that was, as you mentioned, Matt, before they were on the field for 90-plus plays. So your handicap to me comes down to whether or not you think the Eagles are going to have success on the offensive side of the ball. If you think the Eagles can be successful offensively, then I have no trouble playing Philadelphia +3. Or if you want to wait on this, considering it is a Sunday night game, you might potentially get San Francisco 3.5 with as much as the public likes to bet favorites. If you are able to suss your handicap out and say, you know what, I don't think Philadelphia can move the ball, then actually like under, because I don't think Philadelphia is going to be able to do its part. And I think San Francisco will slow this game down precipitously if they're in a situation to try to put a stranglehold on it. And you could get something in the range of 27-17 or 27-20 that still gets you home on a 47.5. So for me, it's been a lot of totals this week. And I think that shows overall where I see the NFL, where I see 9 quality teams in the NFL and then a bunch of dreck. And these are 2 of the quality teams in the league. I have my top 3 basically all right next to each other, these being 2 of them. So I do not necessarily believe Philadelphia is in a great spot here, especially when you consider the mini bye for San Francisco. I don't want anything to do with the side. If I were going to go one way with this, I would probably go toward the under.
Yeah, it's the only thing that scares me about the under is the Eagles' offense has actually been pretty efficient, too. I mean, I know the first half of last week would lead people to believe otherwise, but outside of that, like the offense has been pretty efficient. If we think the 49ers are going to be able to do their deal here, I don't know. That's the only thing that scares me. Well, I think the number's appropriate.
And that's where, and Matt, that's why I said, if you think Philadelphia's offense is efficient enough to do its part, then I probably want the points with the Eagles, right? Because then I'm looking at 2 great offenses that I think are probably going to be trading back and forth, and then I'm not getting involved with the total.
I do think Shanahan probably smart enough to go path of least resistance. The problem is I don't know exactly who is the beneficiary of that. Maybe it's just Purdy over on attempts, like pass attempts, and then that way it doesn't matter who he throws to. We just need him throwing the ball. So maybe that's the angle here. But of course, that is injury dependent on the Cox and Davis situation as well. So we won't be able to make that play until we figure out what's going on there. But if they are both going to play, the Eagles are pretty tough to run against. And even San Francisco, as good as they are running the ball, that's not the easiest way to go about this. And I just don't know why you would square peg round hole when you're as good throwing the ball as you are at the 49ers. So maybe a Purdy over on attempts once we figure out what's going on with that Eagles defensive line. Steven, 49ers, Eagles, game of the week.
Good bet by you, getting the number early in the week. That was the way to go. For where we are now at 3, this is, without question, the most expensive price you will have had to pay for the Niners at any point this season. They've never been priced this high in the market at any point, even before their 3-game losing streak. So to me, I think it's probably not great process to buy high on a team here unless you think there's a really big matchup advantage. And I'm not sure there is one in this. I think these are two of the best teams in the league. And all I ask as a Niners fan is please don't try and block Hassan Reddick with a backup tight end again and get Brock Purdy's elbow torn up. Like, that's what I ask. So, all right. So if you're going to be interested in buying low on the Eagles here, because despite them having the best record in the NFL, you can buy low on them at this point. That's what this number indicates. There's 2 matchups that caught my eye. And the 49ers offensive line and pass protection is one of them against the Eagles defensive linemen, their interior and their edge rushers. Because if you look at the grading all throughout the year, my concern coming into the season was the right side of the offensive line. And it hasn't hurt them because in my opinion, the quality of their schedule hasn't been that great. They've had a pretty easy schedule. But at least in terms of the grading and metrics, everybody except for Trent Williams is a below average pass blocker on this offensive line. And now they face one of the most ferocious pass rushes in the NFL in Philadelphia. Maybe that will matter. Maybe Shanahan can scheme it where it won't matter. The other side is on defense for the 49ers. To me, it's almost like the defense has been built to beat the Chiefs and win the Super Bowl, but forgot that they still have to beat the Eagles to get to that point, because they're very good at getting pressure without blitzing, but they're not very good in the run game. They're not very good rush defenders. In fact, they're not top 20 by DVOA, EPA, or success rate in stopping the run. And the Philadelphia rushing offense has been steadily improving after getting off to a slow start. They're back to top 5 in the NFL at this point. And if you look individually on the San Francisco defense, there's only 2 defenders in the front 7 that have plus grades in terms of rush defense, and it's Nick Bosa and Fred Warner. So there are some matchup advantages here for me as a 49ers fan that cause me concern, but I might be getting too micro. I will admit that. I might be getting too micro in this matchup because overall, the Eagles are negative in net yards per play over the past 3 weeks against quality opponents. They've been getting by the skin of their teeth with some fumble luck and whatnot. And the Niners are number 3 in net yards per play on the season. So maybe I'm getting too micro. I don't know. I confused myself. I didn't bet the game, but those would be the arguments I would make if I was interested in betting the Eagles at +3 here.
Adam, I said we were going to circle back to that MVP talk that we had at the top of the pod. And so we do have a game sitting right here with some guys whose names are in the MVP race. And I want to throw this out to you guys because, listen, I'm the guy who's continually said Brock Purdy has no chance of winning the MVP. However, this is a very reactionary market, as we know. Jalen Hurts is your overwhelming favorite right now at +150. And if they win this game, he's probably going to win it. But if they lose this game, Purdy is still sitting at 13-1 at DraftKings. So you're getting way outside. I think Lamar has no shot, right? Like Lamar's counting stats aren't going to be anywhere near all these other guys. Like it's just not going to happen. And certainly the way that they've really fallen in love with the run, he's going to probably have even less statistical fortune over the rest of the season as well. I just want to throw it out there. If you do want a longer shot ticket in your account, just because it's something that feels good, Purdy's number is going to drop significantly because it is a head-to-head against the leader.
All right, so let's make the case here, right? I don't think it's impossible to make a case for Brock Purdy. We can use the numbers and talk about what he's been able to do all season long, because at some point we're going to get in this discussion to the spot where we say it doesn't matter about system, right? At some point, we're going to start putting numbers against numbers, and we're going to say it doesn't matter what system the guy's in. And Brock Purdy, overall, by just about any number you want to go by the advanced metrics, has been markedly better than the field, right? In terms of just EPA per play alone, Brock Purdy is ahead of Tua by the same margin that Tua is ahead of Patrick Mahomes, and he's number one in all of football. So once the stat nerds like ourselves start really getting into the discussion with Brock Purdy, then yeah, I think you are going to be able to make a case for him, especially in a year where I don't think there really is a clear MVP. So obviously you guys have great value on having Dak where you have him right now, because no one should be 35-1 who's part of the race at the moment. But you're right, Brock Purdy is going to become part of this discussion if San Francisco wins.
Yeah, Steven, I look at this and it's kind of like, okay, there's a chance for Dak to play his way out of it without even playing badly, right? Because their stretch of games moving forward, Eagles, Bills, Dolphins, Lions, right? Like that is 4 very tough games. And even if he plays well and they go 2-2, we know how people view that in the market, right? And then we know the very tough stretch of games that the Eagles have as well. And so you start to look at this and say, well, I mean, as much as I thought it was not going to happen because the credit would either go to Shanahan, or when he throws for 320, they say, oh, but did you see Ayuk after the catch and all these things like that? There might just be, as Adam painted, kind of like no choice, right? Because it's just these other guys are like playing well, but their teams are going, 500 or a little bit better than 500 and all that. And then you kind of look here with this 49ers team, they get past the Eagles. And then it's Seahawks, Cardinals, Ravens, Commanders, Rams. Like, yes, one tough game left against the Ravens, but like they're going to spank the other 4 teams. I think it's probably worth, especially if you have a good portfolio of MVP tickets, it's probably worth adding at least a piece of Purdy in there.
So I think things like EPA, when you're trying to assess value in awards markets, are important because it can help you kind of figure out who has the best chance of amassing some stats the rest of the season. But at some point, we also have to circle back and say, who are these NFL voters who skew older and don't look at advanced metrics going to vote for? And I don't see how Brock Purdy has any chance of winning this award unless he's the 1 seed. And the reason for that is because his statistics, like counting stats wise, not efficiency, I get that, but counting stats wise are very far behind the other candidates in terms of, overall passing yards like Dak Prescott, or total touchdowns. He's well behind. He has 21 total touchdowns. Jalen Hurts has 29. So that's kind of the needle he has to thread in my mind, because to get the 1 seed, he has to win this week, and he also needs Jalen Hurts to lose to the Cowboys next week. That would create a tie at 3 losses apiece, and the Niners would have the head-to-head over the Eagles. That's asking a lot. So to me, this is still, in all likelihood, Jalen Hurts. Even if he loses this game to the 49ers, it's still his to lose in my mind because of the number of touchdowns he's amassed at this point, because of how close the voters got him to winning the MVP last year. He probably would have won it if he didn't get hurt. And the Eagles
he was
are
going to win. He was going to win for sure.
And don't remind me, I had a fat ticket on him then.
Yeah, I did too.
Sucked. But that's kind of where I'm at here. I'm holding that Dak ticket just like you. And the more and more I think about it, I feel like I'm holding a ticket that's going to age really well to get to the second choice on the board. That's what I think. I'm not interested in literally anybody else at this point, because I think Jalen Hurts has a very high probability of winning this award, even if he loses the night. I need him to have any chance of it not being Jalen Hurts, Matt. Doesn't he have to lose the next 2 games?
Well, Adam, let me paint a picture for you. I know you have a thought anyway, but I want to get your thought as on top of your thought that you have. So we know now that it's ranked choice voting. So couldn't we get a scenario in which Purdy gets like so many second place votes and like enough first place votes, and the shit is split all over the place between Tua and Mahomes and Hurts and Dak and whatever, that he could end up winning?
You just made part of the point that I was going to make, which is no, I'm glad you did. I'm glad you did that. That's part of my point as well, is that if it were just a matter of voting first place, it would be a different thing. But the fact that it's ranked choice voting, I think is actually going to be a help to Purdy in that case. And I want to play out the scenario that Steven just laid out, where he talked about Purdy has to win this week and then have Jalen Hurts lose next week. Well, if you have the portfolio that you guys have, where you're holding Dak, then you absolutely want to hold a piece of Purdy at the same rate, because, right, like you want to be holding both Dak and Purdy in the scenario that Steven just laid out, because then you've got your 35 to 1 ticket and you've got a 13 to 1 ticket, and you probably have the whole market pretty well surrounded at that point.
Or the Eagles win this week and he's minus 300.
Yeah,
right?
Well, if the Eagles, I think if the Eagles win this week, all of the rest of your tickets that we're talking about here are dead.
Yeah.
There's no question.
Yeah, this is just about building a portfolio. I mean, like, yeah, we're just talking here. Yes, I mean, it hurts.
But we're at the point where we have a one game that is a pivot point where we can build all the portfolio we want of long shots, but we at least need to make sure everybody understands if that one game doesn't go our way, we're kind of screwed.
Most likely, most likely, more than likely. But yeah, there's still paths outside of that. But yes, more than likely.